has this ever happened to you? How about? Well, I mean, you couldn't take that one seriously anyways. If you have seen any of my videos, then you'll probably realize that apart from the gameplay, one of the most important elements of a game for me is probably the video game music. The soundtrack of a game has many functions. Apart from serving as the background noise, they can help communicate to the player, making them feel emotions, and even tell a story with just this soundtrack. This one tells the story of fucking Satan being tortured, apparently, like, damn! The thing is, I don't know if you've realized, but there are a lot of games that simply don't get the attention that they deserve, especially in the music department, and I want to help remedy that. Now, just so we're in the clear, I try to search for games that are generally not talked about all too often in conversations regarding video game music, or just OSTs that I feel need to be talked about more than they already are, so there won't be any situations like, hey yo, how's it going my beautiful people? I found this little game that has pretty good music, you've probably never heard of it, it's called Persona 4 Golden. Man, the clickbaiting here is just some nasty work. Now you may be looking at me right now and be saying something along the lines of the best game music you've never heard of, and he puts Marvel vs. Capcom 2 first. And if that is you, then first off, thank you for stopping by and leaving a comment, because I do think that it does help the video a lot. And second off, the curse of wrong! Fellas, I need some of y'all to realize that MVC2 released 24 years ago and hasn't had a modern release available since what? 2011? For the last like 13 years, the only option that a person had to play this game legitimately was going to an arcade and praying that the game was there, followed up by praying that they were playing against me, because I suck ass at this game. Or on the other hand, they may be robbing you, but at least they're giving you the option to say no. Now that the game is coming back through the Marvel vs. Capcom collection that is coming out soon, now is as good a time as any to show people how fucking good this game is. But more than that, how good this damn soundtrack is. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is one of the many examples of a phenomenon that I like to call two things that are completely different and should not work well together in theory, yet absolutely work together in execution. Just like how Samurai Champloo combined both hip-hop and samurais, MVC2 combines the chaos that comes with the world of fighting games and combines it with a very jazz-heavy soundtrack opposed to, like, the entire fighting game genre. Now, believe it or not, this resulted in the game being heavily criticized when it first came out, and while those people are wrong and have weak plotlines, it definitely cannot be denied that the tonal shift is pretty drastic. I mean, when someone plays a fighting game, I feel like people expect something along the lines of hell, it don't even gotta be rock, but a lot of the time, people simply don't expect. The game has been heavily criticized in the past due to its musical choices, but personally, yeah, nah man, this rules. The blending of wildly different styles of art is an art in and of itself. While there are a lot of things that can go wrong in that blending, successfully pulling off this fusion of stylistic worlds can create something new of its own. Again, the main example that pops into my head is Samurai Champloo, but another example that pops into my head is Cowboy Bebop, with the whole space cowboy aesthetic on top of the jazz that serves as the core of the show's style. Matter of fact, I think that Cowboy Bebop is probably the best example out of the ones that I've mentioned, considering the fact that the show often have fight scenes with jazz pieces playing in the background. A similar case occurs with Marvel vs. Capcom 2. The jazz is so conceptually distinct to the world of fighting games, yet it absolutely fits perfectly. A fighting game can have a lot of learning, but it also has improvisation at the forefront, with adaptation being essential to success. And with that in mind, is a musical genre so known for its improvisation not the perfect fit for a fighting game? Jazz perfectly captures the essence of fighting games, a performance full of improvisation, energy, and emotion that, should it ever come back to tournaments like EVO, I believe can truly be appreciated as some of the best soundtracks in the fighting game scene. When people talk about some of the top tiers in game music, something that commonly appears in conversations are fighting games, which you may have been able to guess based on the that I literally just talked about not even 10 seconds ago. Out of the many examples of fighting games that I could talk about though, the one that I want to give a special mention to would have to be Rivals of Aether. Rivals is one of my favorite fighting games, and if you're not playing with the incredible cast of characters or the elder chores that the community is often capable of, then chances are that you're enjoying the tunes that the game has to offer. Rivals does one of my favorite things with music in fighting games, which is to have music that perfectly represents the roots of the characters and their personalities. Every single tune that the game has to offer reflects a character and their locales perfectly, from the upbeat tunes that represent both Orcan and the port town where he resides, to the theme of Claren that captures her struggles fighting for a better tomorrow. Push Crack's theme, which plays while I lose my brain cells playing him or against him. I could go on with other examples from the other stages. The game and its music really do a good job of showing the player how distinct the many cultures and groups of the games are from one another. And on top of that, there are also some collab tracks from Shovel Knight and Ori and the Blind Forest which simply sound absolutely wonderful. Out of the many tracks that the game has to offer though, my favorite will probably have to be Moonlight Inferno. Inferno is the track characteristic of the Blazing Hideout stage, and it's one of the examples that most stands out when hearing the game's OST for the first time. Listening to this for the first time, it felt like I was transported to some magical land. The song has many Asian influences, which makes sense considering the fact that the stage also features temples and other elements of the such, and furthermore, the song features many instruments that bring a mystical feeling from the place, such as the use of flutes and other wind instruments, making you feel as though you've entered something that, probably sacred, mystical, divine even. And again, with the artistic choices of the stage, makes a lot of sense. Overall, song is a fucking banger. Just like how I got banged playing this game. Now one last thing that I want to mention when it comes to the soundtrack of the game will probably have to be the usage of the main motif of the game. Rebels of Aether features a main theme that is constantly heard in many modes of the game in different ways. In the main menu of the game, we can hear the main motif in a more calm state, giving the player a chance to relax before jumping into the action, or letting them catch a breather after getting their ass handed to them a couple of times. But hold on, see that clip of me fighting? Rewind it. Once the player decides to enter the fray in local or online play though, they'll be greeted to one of the three main character select themes, with the main motif changing in each version. In the first one, the theme changes into a more energetic version of itself to get the player pumped to get in the match. During the second version of the select screen though, the theme is more so a balance of the calm and the energetic, keeping the player in anticipation for the next battle yet not going at full throttle 24/7. The final one though, is when shit gets fucking real. Imagine, both players have won one game and need one more to win the whole set, and then this plays. That's right, pants are stained, hype is at an all-time high, and the music is going wild. The main motif appears pretty much everywhere else in the game though. It appears in the customization, it appears in the story mode, and motherfucker, a place where you're playing tetherball. The soundtrack for Rivals is incredibly detailed, with attention being put into every single minuscule aspect of it, and I can only just imagine what it will have to offer when it comes to the sequel. Speak of underrated games that deserve more attention instead of a probably shitty live-action movie, and first off, I don't know how many titles can fit that description, but second off, Gravity Rush is gonna be in that conversation somehow. When I was looking up info about the Gravity Rush soundtrack for the video, what I found was that the main dude behind the soundtrack was none other than Kohei Tanaka, which to a lot of people not really in tune with the behind the scenes of anime and popular shows, quite literally means nothing. But let me just explain in simple terms, he made the music for One Piece. I mean, with a composer like that, the soundtrack was bound to be one of the greatest to ever do it. I mean, fuck! The One Piece vibe of this soundtrack is something that you can definitely notice throughout the many tracks of Gravity Rush. The game often has pieces that capture the same sense of wonder and adventure that One Piece has possessed through the years, leading to a soundtrack that feels right out of a film or a show. A lot of the places in the game also showcase a lot of musical variety from each other, going from beautiful orchestras to the jazzy melodies that can be found in Plejun. Fellows, if music could fuck, then Plejun will be the greatest fucker in existence. This is one of the greatest tracks in video game history, and it's only improved upon in the sequel. Gravity Rush 2 features an even grander soundtrack with more musical variety. And god fucking damn! A lot of the tracks from the first game return with new versions that are often a lot more interesting and overall just better than they were with the first go around. Plejun now sounds like it comes straight from a live performance. The other returning tracks have more whimsy in them, and Fuck it, I don't even have many other ways of describing the tracks other than it hits fucking different. A lot of the new tracks are also really good as well. The main world in 2 is divided into 3 segments, all based on the social classes of the residents, and the music for each part of the map does a great job representing the lives and struggles of the residents. They go most nice, energetic, and cheery to capture the lives of the people living by the marketplace. They go nice, somber, melancholic, and shows the struggles of the people living quite literally at the bottom of the world with little hope of progressing in society. All the while, the rich folks have a jolly old time enjoying their grand song. If you haven't noticed by now, telling a story through songs is pretty damn good and it rules. These are my main highlights of the Gravity Rush soundtrack, but don't be mistaken because there are still a lot more songs that are fantastic throughout the entire game. I haven't even mentioned the many songs that feel like superhero themes, like the many battle themes and boss themes, or the song in which Cat just starts singing fake French. You play this game right now! The Gravity Rush soundtrack is incredible, and while you're at it, you might as well play Gravity Rush 1 and 2. It probably won't bring back the franchise, and it won't make Sunny mistreated any more than it already has, but hey! At least you have 2 really good games to play. The topic of games horribly mistreated by their companies is none other than Mr. Rayman himself, the poor fool. Despite having some of the best titles in the platform genre, one of the most recognizable designs in gaming, and a whole lot of fans that want more games in the series, the franchise is just constantly relegated to little cameos, shitty rabbit games, and whatever the fuck was happening in the one Netflix show, which, don't get me wrong, from what I saw they did Rayman some level of justice, but a TV show in which Rayman is a side character does not equate to a game in which Rayman is the main protagonist. Rayman Origins is by far my favorite entry in the series, and part of it is absolutely the result of the soundtrack that the game has. Now stop me if you heard this before, because chances are that I've already said this like 3 times before in the same damn video, but Rayman Origins music is diverse, it is rich, it is childish. If I have to listen to this kazoo for one more second, there are gonna be problems. A lot of the soundtrack of the game feels cinematic in a way, but not in the same way that something like Uncharted and this music feels cinematic. More like an animated movie, I guess. The songs in the game can be so fucking unserious, like, I've seen more serious shits than this game. The silliness does help make the locales feel distinct from one another, as the many worlds of the game are often characterized by one key factor in their music. In the gibberish jungle, you'll constantly be hearing up, well, what the fuck is this? What the actual fuck is this? It's apparently a jawharp, but I think a doohickey is a better fitting title for this, so they may get me started on the desert of didgeridoos. If we're capable of naming instruments didgeridoos, then it's only a matter of time before we start touching mouse tools. Poor Man Land doesn't have any particular instrument to link to the world, but has 2 very distinct styles, with the Icy Land featuring a more tropical aspect, although considering the location of this place, maybe it's just me talking out of my ass, and instead of the cool party-like feeling that emanates from the ice part of the world, the fire part features Mexican-inspired songs. I love this game so much! Have you ever wanted to listen to a song that sounds like a Wild West standout while running for your fucking life on the hardest level in the game? Because a lot of the level can offer that to you and more. Best song in the game though? Would you just have to go to the Sea of Serendipity, enter one of the many levels that's underwater, and enjoy the ride from there. I'm going to be entirely straight with y'all. There is one reason, and one reason only, for why I decided to make this video in the first place, and that is because of my insane love for the soundtrack of these games. This may be just like my favorite soundtrack in any video game. Not Persona, not Jet Set Radio, not even Devil May Cry. The World Ends With You is just one of the many franchises that deserve the world, but failed as a result of poor marketing tactics and overall poor timing in general. Not only does Square Enix release Neo The World Ends With You in the middle of 2021 with minuscule advertising, but when they finally dignified themselves to port the game to Steam, they had the audacity to not only shadow drop it, but shadow drop it a day before Persona 5 Royal came out. What are we doing here? If I had a nickel for every franchise that companies barely advertise, then I'll be fucking rich! Why the fuck does this keep happening? The World Ends With You is a game whose core message is all about not closing yourself to the world around you, and the developers wanted the music of the game to capture what going around Shibuya and your day-to-day will feel like, with modern musical genres such as hip-hop, pop, and rock making the core of the soundtrack. There's rarely an instance in which a track will be relegated to a single event or location, selling the idea that not every day is going to be the same as the last, making the world feel more realistic, and making the music feel like it actually forms a part of said world. It makes Shibuya itself feel alive, something that is shown in multiple ways through other elements of the game, both narratively and mechanically, but it is further demonstrated through the music itself. Shibuya is consistently inconsistent with an ever-changing mood that is perfectly captured through the musical richness from the soundtrack. As I already mentioned, they pull from a lot of genres to create the soundtrack, going from pop-inspired melodies with tracks like Long Dream O Parts and Give Me All Your Love,
Give me all your love, give me all your love, don't give it to someone else.
to hip-hop inspired music such as Ending Beginning, Detonation, or Game Over.
Busy, dizzy, lazy, got a global eyes and growing mind. Above all, I'm wise, I'm very well organized. Make me a compromise. Watch me rise high for the last time. See,
And they can even go all the way to rock-inspired tracks such as Someday, Emptiness, and my personal favorite track from both games, Transformation, which not only is basically the theme for the best character in the game, but is also the world's greatest math pun put into a badass rock song.
open your eyes, put yourself together. Now you should accept this.
Neo The World Ends With You, interestingly enough, decides to take a more rock-focused approach, while not abandoning the other genres seen in the first game. This is something that was more than likely done to reflect not only the mostly new cast, but to also reflect the passage of time and the cultural changes during the time skip between the first game and Neo. As I mentioned previously, Shibuya is as much of a character as the rest of the main cast, and it's going to change with the passage of time, but despite its changes, the core is still the same. I find this a really smart way of telling a story without saying a single word. It's something that not many new players are going to notice, but it's definitely something that is going to be picked up by the returning players. My favorite tracks from Neo will probably be Bird in Hand, Storm, and especially Breaking Free, more than anything because it feels like a fucking Linkin Park track. Personally, I am a bigger fan of the tracks in Neo compared to the first game, but that's less because I think that the tracks are straight up better and more so that I simply have more situations in which I listen to the OST. Makes for an incredible lineup when going to the gym or when trying to simply listen to something to hype myself up. You never know. But if you like the direction of the first game or Neo more, I think that it's impossible to say that one is anything less than spectacular. It's honestly a shame that the series is underground compared to other Square Enix franchises. It really has the potential to be something greater, but they just keep shooting the damn thing in the foot and then keep wondering why the franchise doesn't meet expectations. Despite the many problems that the franchise has faced though, it is still an incredible experience and it carries with it a soundtrack that is essentially perfect. Now this is normally the part where I would say that this is everything that I had to offer when it comes to underrated soundtracks that deserve more attention, but no, I couldn't even finish off that sentence before breaking into uncontrollable laughter. I had to cut like 3 games from this video because I didn't want to write all of that, but if there's interest for a part 2, I'll sure as hell strike back with more music for you guys to listen to. I love recommending music to other people, mainly because I know that my taste is elite and everything that I listen to is fucking gold that everyone will enjoy, but also because it brings attention to music that may not have received it otherwise. Even if 90% of the world fails to hear The World Ends With You soundtrack, I'll still keep fighting for the day where it actually becomes a mainstream franchise. Well, that's all the time that I've had for today. I'm just a random stranger man on the internet, but hey, just call me Pseudo.